What is up, guys? So, today I finally come back with my mind more put together and a little bit more well rested to be able to produce a stream and especially go back to the topics that I normally focus on. And honestly, I haven't really been invested on the channel because I've had my time taken up more by the stuff that I'm trying to establish on the side, and there's something new that I'm starting to mess with, and I'm kind of nervous about it because I'm not even sure how to properly execute certain functions, but hopefully this will not result in a massive loss. But I am so excited to be here because I love doing this and I kept beating myself up over it. I haven't streamed today. I can't stream today. I haven't streamed today. I need to stream today. And I just failed at it miserably. So I said, you know what? Let me let it go. Let me just be away for a little bit, work on this stuff, and then come back here. So I want to go back to being more politically inclined, like I usually am in the channel, and that's honestly what I like to do the most. So here I am. And I see you, Garuda. Good to see you. I hope you're doing fantastic. So, what inspired today's topic was that I was in the wonderful world of Twitter and I somehow stumbled upon someone's tweet, and it's about a piece that I have linked in the description. It's from the Walrus Canada, and the title of the article is "Why Are We So Bad at Supporting Women in Power?" And I read it, so I will go through I will try to highlight the things and then give my opinion on it. And I'm pretty sure that someone out there is going to stumble upon this and my opinion and be like, I'm part of the problem. But honestly, for anybody who's new to the channel, all I need to say to them is that you need to understand that I'm not going to be here repeating what other people are saying. I like to take a point of view and play devil's advocate sometimes, and thus express a completely different point of view. It doesn't mean that I always back up what the right way of things are or should be, because I think that in the end, everybody's different. Your goals are different. My goals are different, so we don't have to agree on this. But, anyways, people will always call me, what can I say, like sexist or something. I don't care. I mean, I honestly don't care. And I saw someone else. I see JP. Good afternoon. All right, so let's dive into this. So for women to be equal, they have to earn as much as men, own as much as men, be in the same decision-making rooms as men. The women's right movement has fought hard and is fighting hard for these things. I don't see it. I don't understand why it's 2020 and we're still having this discussion. Like when it comes like to the point of earning, we already earn as much as men if we work as much as men, if we have the same skill set as men, if we have the same experience as men, if we have the same physical tolerance and performance and output as men. So I still don't understand why it's 2020 and we're still ignoring that. And when we say stuff about inequality, we fail to mention those factors. They just say that we're making, what's the number, 82 cents for every dollar or something? Well, once again, your capability matters. Your physical capacity matters. Your experience matters. And a lot of the times, I feel like this is not taken into account. And also, if you're trying to attack something from the root, from its origin, when you have been at a disadvantage for a while, for obvious reasons, I just feel like this is a really, really odd thing. I think that in order for this to be achieved, just like revolutions have achieved certain things for certain nations, I guess women would need to officially declare war on the men. And if that happened, we all know who are going to lose this shit, all right? So I get why women say this stuff, but what I don't get is why, if this was set up by men, why is it so difficult to understand that if you want to change the system, you would need to actively fight this, but in a more aggressive way? And sometimes I'm talking about real, actual hot wars, you know? Because that's usually the way things change is when there is bloodshed or when there is a body count. But of course, we ain't trying to go that way because we're all supposed to be a more civilized world. But what I'm saying is that women, biologically, let's just limit it to biologically, we are not designed for this shit. And mentally, I can tell you that we are not designed for this shit. And I will dive into that in a little bit. Uh, be in the same decision making room as men. Who's to say that we're not allowed in those rooms? Sometimes what ends up happening is that when we are in those rooms, we don't seem to be able to handle the pressure very well. And I promise you that we'll get to that later as well. And when it comes to owning as much as men, well, maybe if you want to own as much as men, maybe have a family that owns stuff in the first place. Because let me tell you that the average person does not own a lot of things. The average person does not come from a background where they own things. Like your family, maybe your parents never had a house. I know that I don't have a house. I live in an apartment. And so does my mother, because my mother lives with me. What does she have to pass down to me right now? Definitely not a residence. And when it comes to other objects, like say cars and whatnot, I realistically could not afford to be owning two cars at the same time, even if they're paid off. So it's not like I can anticipate that I'm going to inherit another vehicle from her. And it's honestly not something that's in my interest. So, what can I say? If you want to own more, then you have to make the money that you're making work for you. And for the average person, that is difficult. So, in that case, you need to make certain decisions to put yourself at an advantage. If you come from a relatively underprivileged background, that means you will have to work extra hard. You will need to obtain more education. While you're getting that education, you will probably also need to work at the same time. So your grades may suffer, your income may suffer. So I think the best way to tackle that would be to create connections that are sharing the same goals as you and make stuff work. And what I mean by that is if you have an interest in, let's say, producing something, come up with your own brand of toilet paper if you want. Come up with it, find a way to sell it, and make money that way. You just That's what I'm saying. People are typically thinking about ending up working for someone else. Like you want to be the CEO of a company. Well, found your own company, establish your own company, but remember that you need money for that. If you don't like the idea of working for someone for the rest of your life, you need to start something. And our education system doesn't really help us a lot because right now, my biggest struggle is getting started with investments. I have tried 3 different occasions to set up an account and I have run into problems. And I am just at a point where I'm not sure what to do anymore. And I'm like, well, maybe investments are the devil. Although that's the way for people to end up rich and not having to work for someone and have money work for them. But am I tripping over that? No, because I'm trying my best. And I take satisfaction in the fact that I am trying to improve my life and I'm getting educated in that sector. I am not going to blame someone else for that. I'm not going to blame society for that. The only thing that society is guilty of is making our education system in this country be so shitty to where the things that I think are important for political reasons seem to be withheld from us. Like, imagine if everybody was able to figure this out. Nobody would be subjugated. Nobody would be submitted to doing a work that they're not meant to, whether it be skilled or unskilled. To me, the idea of working for someone for the rest of my life who tells me what time I need to be in and tells me to come work when the weather is inclement, and I gotta go into work when I'm sick as shit because otherwise I don't make money to sustain my life. I hate that. I hate the thought of that being my life forever. So that is why I am making certain decisions, sacrificing certain things to put myself in a more advantageous position. Like, I'm not having kids. I could have had kids a long ass time ago. But I said, you know what? That's gonna fuck me up. So if I have certain goals, in order to achieve them, I am not going to make decisions that will deliberately put me at a disadvantage. Maybe, just fucking maybe, women do not get supported as much for certain things because of the decisions that we end up making. What is your mindset? Women tend to naturally not have an interest in this aspect of the business world. At least the females I have met personally in my life and my experience in my school district, which was a terrible district. Nobody was ever talking in these terms. This is stuff that happens once you mature. And we all tend to come from broken families, daddy-less families. That means that we do not get exposed to as many useful information about the industries that would improve our life qualities independently. And why else would women feel compelled to be trying their hardest to trap a guy so that a guy can help maintain them? And the best way to do that is to produce offspring. I don't know why I would need to respect and admire someone who makes those kinds of decisions. To me, it would be more admirable to see a woman coming from absolutely nothing and somehow making it work all by herself, as opposed to going around begging other people to maintain me because vagina. You know, I do not need to recur to the government for aid. And should I need it, I feel good, amazing, great in my mind, knowing that I have not been negatively contributing to the system. What I mean by that is that when I work, I contribute to like public stuff, public benefits, and I have worked for that. I don't have to not be working and then apply for this stuff just because I'm a human who needs to somehow stay alive, but I'm not even trying to work. You will make wonders with whatever job it is that you arrive at. And that is what I have been doing. And I feel really proud of myself for that. So I have that standard. It's on me. That's my value. I'm not saying that's how everybody should think. I'm just saying that I feel great with my achievements because little by little, I am humiliating myself and allowing others to intervene to advise me on ways to make my life better. I'm not going around trying to talk down on the men, going like, nah, because of girl power, I'm better than you, I can get this done, I'm cleaner than you. I don't do that mess. I'm like, you know what? I'm a complete piece of shit at what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. I need help. I need support. If you know something, tell me about it. Hey, this box is extra heavy. It's extra uncomfortable. I could do it myself, but I risk injury. May I disrupt you for a second to make sure that I can get this safely down from the pallet? And the person goes, sure, absolutely, no problem. I don't have to talk down on this man and be like, no, I'm going to do it myself because female pride. I don't need a man in my life. No, I am the first to admit that I like having men in my life. So maybe we fear supporting women in positions of power because a lot of them, once you put them in a position of power, the fumes really go up to their brains. And we don't need that. I have honestly experienced the most stressful leadership in my life has been female. And I'm not saying that all women are terrible at the job, but we are giving ourselves a terrible precedent when we do those things. So once we go out for positions that are important, such as executive positions, we are going to be heavily scrutinized for what we are doing because of the precedent that we have established. It shouldn't have to be that way. I know that it wasn't until fairly recently, 100 years ago, that we couldn't even vote. We couldn't even be allowed to hold certain positions, certain jobs. But when I think about it as critically and unbiased as possible, when I look at my life now and I feel overwhelmed over how much I feel I should know at my age versus what I actually know, I'm like, shit, no wonder why men took care of this. They are designed for that. They are the ones capable of handling this stuff. I'm not designed for this. I'm not. I'm really trying to integrate myself into a system that is simply not designed to favor me. If I was so concerned about having a society in which I'm at the top, how about if I tried to go invade another nation or an island or something and then be like, yeah, this is going to be a female only land or female led land. And then we're going to go down in history as the people who started invading other nations to attempt to steal their resources, right? Because, I mean, that's how society became what it became in modern days. Some wars had to be fought, some places needed to be invaded, and then the people who wanted power, they ended up with the power, especially if you come from a background with resources. So that's what I'm saying. If you're really that concerned about changing the system, then start your own country. But why won't you do it? Because you lack resources. And you are just not designed for that. So stop watching movies, stop getting woke from fictional things, and think about it from a realistic point of view. There is just some stuff that we're not designed to do. And I don't want to just carelessly say I'm okay with that because, like I said, now my life is particularly difficult. But I also understand why some industries, some positions are dominated by men more than women. So I promise that that'll make sense the more that we go along with this. But anyway, hello there. I cannot participate this time since I'm working, but I wanted to say, hey, I hope everything is doing well. Hello, Jimmy. Bye, Jimmy. Everything is doing fine. Good to see you. I have not forgotten about you. I will get to you. I promise. And most men like to lift heavy things in front of women because we are nerds. And also because you're designed for it. To me personally, I like to observe how guys do it. And sometimes when I'm observing how guys do it, I'm like, you're bending your back. You must not bend your back. You must use your knees. You must bend your knees. And sometimes guys themselves take risks and end up hurting themselves as well. But overall, I find that they injure themselves with these kinds of jobs a little less. Because the other day I was trying to do stocking, and there was this float that was really, 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 really like high, and I was like, I have to bring down cases of gallons of water using my bare hands, and this thing is taller than me, and shoulder strength, upper body strength is definitely not what I have. I gave it a try and I said, fuck, no, I can't do it. So I just very kindly went over to someone and I was like, hey, could I possibly trouble you with making this pile like lower, like at my height? And that's all the help I need, I promise. And the person was not even tripping. They were like, oh yeah, I did this float. I'm sorry. I had no idea that you were going to come over to support us. So I set up this float to be, at my level, my comfort level. And I'm like, don't worry. I am sorry that I'm getting in your way of doing your job. But since I'm floating, I need to find something to do to justify my presence here. And I saw that this needed to be worked on, but I was just not I was not capable of doing it. I just need this little accommodation, and after that, I won't bother you for the rest of the shift. And that's how it happened. Or other times, someone comes over and they're like, hey, can I help you with that? And I'm like, let me give it a try. Nope. Or yes. I don't have issues with that. So, like I've said, because of our pride, sometimes that carries on. People don't forget about moments like that. So if you're trying to go for more important positions, we go, oh, we don't need to be giving a position to a person who thinks this way, to a person whose pride comes before everything else. So that's why when I see articles like this, I'm like, let me think outside of what is not being said here. And also based on my experiences at like the lowest level of a company. And then I'm like, I'm okay with women not being supported in positions of power. Like, especially with what I know about what happens in those positions. But we'll get there. And let's see, own as much, earn as much, decision making. All right. So women represented an average of almost 38% of MBA students in North America and Europe in 2018. They held just under 10% of executive positions. And remember that this is a Canadian article, so this is going to say at Canada's largest 100% publicly traded companies that same year. While nearly half of practicing lawyers in Canada are women, they make up less than 30% of equity partners at law firms and only 39.6% of judges. While 60% of university graduates are women, discounting STEM, only about 28% of tenured professors are, as of 2017. Anyway, end of sentence. And while women would make up half of the voting population at the start of 2018, they accounted for only 26% of Canada's MPs, 29% of MPPs, and 18% of mayors. Canada has had only 11 female premiers in its entire 150 plus year history. The first was elected in 1991. Premiers? If that wasn't depressing enough, there's also the problem of us getting the solution all wrong. There's an assumption that in making it to the top of any particular field, women are, well, at the top. They can affect change, enact vision, control their own lives and the lives of the people around them. They have resources and organizational influence and positions that effectively halt the need to grin and bear it. They do not have to suffer men grabbing their asses, making crude sexual jokes, masturbating into office plants, or whatever it is that men do on a given day to show dominance and control. At the top, those days are thought to be gone. Well, again, how about if you establish your own company as opposed to working your way into an established company? Maybe the companies that you work at have been, like, historically, the positions have been held by men. So men will do men's stuff. Let's assume that everything that happens here is true. I'm assuming she would not make this up because, let's just say that this happened and men truly do all those terrible things. I mean, we know that people in positions of power have a really altered perception. When you are the dominant being, living beings in general, when they know that they are dominant, they will exhibit that one way or another. Because women are not particularly innocent either. Have you heard about the college admission scandals? How many of those people who are guilty of those, like that scam going on, giving admissions to the children of these people just because of who their parents are and because they can pay to have these kids admitted into these colleges? Does that not concern you? Why would we want to put women in positions of powers when they can resort to that type of shit just to make sure that their offspring are on top? Just because you are a woman in a powerful position doesn't mean that you're going to be any better than the guy when it comes to integrity. So, what is going to happen to you mentally and emotionally when you get to that position? Some men have actually done a pretty decent job. Not everyone ever has been accused of doing those terrible things. Men CEOs, not all of them have been accused of that stuff and whatnot. But now women are figuring out that if you make something up about a guy, you can get certain perks. You have advantages over the judicial system. So, like, what incentive is there to place women in those positions? Once you reach the top, it's, what can I say? Unless you can really manage an entire company, I don't know, but me, I tried to put myself in that situation. Like, what would it be like for me to be alone, completely alone, without anyone's support, being in charge of what I know it's like to be in charge of a company? CEO is pretty much the person who makes sure that stuff gets executed. Chief Executive Officer. So to execute certain things, whatever the people on the board, the stakeholders say, you're making sure that that stuff gets carried out. You have the position. It doesn't mean I'm the owner, I can just do whatever the heck I want without being held accountable. You can get fired from your own company, as we all know. But when I think about it, I try to imagine myself in, let's say, later in life when I'm in my 30s. Let's say that for some reason I'm not married. What would it be like for me to handle all of that pressure all by myself? Like, sure, I have the pleasure of being the CEO, right? I worked hard for this, I achieved it. Let's assume that somehow it happens without any nepotism involved or without any, say, my friends were the ones who founded this company, so therefore they will consider me at some point. Somehow. I don't know. Let's just assume that it somehow happens. Right now, as it is, me as a single woman, I keep telling myself if only I had a little bit more support in my personal life, I know I could be wrecking some shit. If I didn't have to be, like, if I were married and I counted on that kind of support, I know that my life would be so much better. But then when I try to think about me achieving all this stuff, being more career focused, the sacrifices that I have to make mentally, physically, emotionally, all that stuff, I don't think it's worth it. Like, sure, I may be making my millions, but I'm going to be leaving my health behind, my well being behind, in the pursuit of this power, of this money, and then what'll be left for me once I get there? And that's why we get all these people who are like struggling with mental health. And I'm like, I cannot feel empathy for these people because you made that decision. You decided to be career centered, and now you're like 35, 40 years old. Your reproductive health is like on the decline, and your youth has been absorbed by four walls, and you were not able to juggle a personal life in the midst of all that. I cannot feel empathy for someone whose value was the career, whose value was the pursuit of power. And that's one of the reasons why I say that women are not designed to be holding those kinds of roles. Because unfortunately, especially on a social level, men's perception of women as women start aging, it just changes. Like, we will not be favored anymore after a certain age. I think that's messed up, that's fucked up, but men just age a little differently, and our perception of men also happens to be different. Why is it that women on average tend to prefer men who are older than them? There is a reason for that, and it's in part biological. And it also comes from the fact that the older a guy is, the more likely he has his life put together. But you cannot expect for a guy to be excited about going to a home, the guy being wired to exhibit dominance. They're going to get involved in a relationship with someone who is going to be, let's say, years ahead of them financially. That is a freaking blow. And for me personally, I like for the guy to be the provider. I like for the guy to be, what can I say, financially dominant in that aspect. Because I know that I am just not designed to be messing with all those things. Women can change the world. Women can contribute to helping certain fields. Like, we can contribute ideas, we can contribute, I don't know, new formulas in science and whatnot. But to hold positions of power, I think that we can be consulted, but for us to be responsible for, say, a military, I cannot imagine that. I cannot imagine a life in which I am the president of this country and I am in command of our military forces. Like, I do not think about that. That is not what is in my mind right now. I do not think about protecting my own house. So, like, how can I think about protecting this nation's borders? It's just something that doesn't match us. But if you're a woman and that's what you study and that's what you prepare yourself for, and you can show and prove that that's the skill that you have, good for you. I will admire you because I simply cannot imagine rewiring my brain into thinking like a defender. But it's just so rare to stumble upon that. And if you try to push this narrative that women need to be given more opportunities, women need to be put in these positions just because women, that's not solving the problem, because you're going to put someone who is inept into this position, and then stuff is just going to go to hell. In the same manner that you cannot put a guy who simply bullshits himself to success, bullshits his way to success in important positions. That has happened a lot. I have heard of stories and I have witnessed them myself where I work. This guy just happened to be really good at an interview. We give him a position in which he has to be a manager of certain things, and he ended up fucking it up. Not everybody is meant to be a manager. Not everybody is meant to be a leader. So it appears that men tend to be better fit for the role. As opposed to being upset about that because I want a reason to be upset about something, just ask yourself why that is. Do we need to have a female CEO who's going to be calling out all the time? The best representative for a company would be the person who's physically fit, mentally fit, emotionally fit. If I were pregnant and I'm the CEO, I will need to take time off. How do we deal with that? Who's going to be my representative? Who's going to know as much as me? Why would we need to find a representative when we can save ourselves from that trouble by hiring someone who's going to be more fit? Because on top of us wanting positions of power, we will want to continue our personal lives as well. And God forbid if you have being a mother as a goal. We have been in charge of nurturing, being the nurturing role in our homes since forever. And then you wonder why children grow up and they're fucked in the head. It's because you give them nannies, you're not there for your children, and your children cannot see you as parents because you're not doing the parental aspect of the upbringing like you're supposed to because you're too busy with your goddamn career. That's what I'm saying. Do we really need to aspire for such important positions when we are not the best fit for it? Why do you get angry about that? That is the thing that I cannot get behind, the thing that I cannot support. And that's when I get described as someone who's politically very close minded or very submissive. No, I just understand why things are the way that they are and why it tends to work that way. So if you really want to hold positions of power, you start your own thing as opposed to going to an industry that's been predominantly, say, male and begging to be granted the privilege of holding a certain position when you are not the best fit for it. We end up giving you the position and then you cannot handle it. Be able to handle the pressure. If you have a lot of people opposing you, they have their reasons to be opposed to you. As opposed to crying about it, prove that you can take it. Even the people who are deliberately bitches to you, who deliberately make your job difficult, that's when you need to like wear an extra layer of steel over your skin and just be like, I can take it. I can take the bullshit. You know, this person doesn't want to support me. Who needs them? I will have a better person advising me instead of them. Or I'm self-sufficient. Let me prove it. But you get to the position and you realize that it doesn't work in the way that you were expecting. And then you are begging for accommodations. I hate that. So if you know for a fact that you're going to have all these challenges, if you do not have a solution in place, do not go out for that position. Consider everything that could possibly go wrong, everything that could possibly go against you, just because you're a girl. Ask yourself if you can handle it. If you cannot handle any opposition, do not go out for the position. Because I'm sure that men experience their degree of objections when they're holding the position, but I don't hear them being dramatic about it. So your perception of the world may put you at a disadvantage when it comes to holding these positions. And that's why I don't tend to be mad that there's more men CEOs than female CEOs. I will never be upset over that. But anyway, let's continue because I'm pretty much repeating myself there. Uh, at least by every standard that we use to measure equality, equal pay, equal opportunity, equal work life free from sexual violence and discrimination. As awful as things are for women at the bottom, they're just as awful for women at the top. Actually, they are worse. So apparently, it is worse to be a CEO. And somehow you still want to aspire to be a CEO, even though it's worse than being at the very bottom. And experiencing equal pay, again, if you want equal pay, a position is pre-established. Positions tend to be pre-established. Like, let's say that if you are the manager, let's say that you're the executive manager of operations, whatever that position is called when you're in charge of like coordinating for more than one facility, whatever it is. If you know that the position pays $100,000 per year, that's a salary. It doesn't matter what you do, who you are, you will be guaranteed paid a pay of $100,000 as long as you show up to your shift. You complete your task. You get the raise to be at that salary. Because sometimes what ends up happening is you need to gain that experience holding this position to be capped out at the goal, which is $100,000. In your first year, you may only earn $95,000 until you build yourself to be at that cap. But if the position is posted as this is what you will make, no growth in there whatsoever, this is your entry level salary, you will make that amount of money. Let's say you will make the $95,000, but only if you show up every day to your job, do everything like you're supposed to so that you don't get penalized in any way, and at the end of the day, at the end of the year, your take-home amount should be those $95,000. Let's assume that taxes do not get in the way of that. Then maybe 3, 4, 5 years pass. You have obtained experience. You have performed well. You have been given the maximum increase for like your cap, which would be the 100,000. And then every year you showed up to your shift religiously, never missed a day, did not take vacation, stuff like that, you will see those $100,000 in your account. But for me personally, women who have held executive positions, important positions that I have personally observed, witnessed, and met, they take a lot of vacation. They take a lot of time off. Why? If I had to assume, I've never conversed with them, because I don't discuss people's careers. I think this is very personal. But what I would assume is that physically, they cannot take it. Mentally, they cannot take it. You need more rest. You need more breaks. You need more accommodation. So why on God's green earth are you still saying that you cannot make as much as a man? Maybe because the men do not tend to be away from work as much. Men prefer to be at work, whereas the women tend to be very split when it comes to that. I know that when I get 8-hour shifts, I fucking hate it. I detest it. By the 5th hour, I am ready to fucking go. And I accept that because I know that I am not meant. As a human being, I don't think you are meant to be exposing yourself to work like that with very, very, very limited break period. We are only human, and the demands of every industry are increasing, and they are asking you to do the job of three people sometimes at the same time without any breaks, without any extra consideration whatsoever. And you're telling me as a woman that I have to be able to have that kind of output consistently for most of the year. Realistically, I cannot do that. I'm just not physically fit. And emotionally, I will break from that. Thankfully, I normally don't. But at some point, you get exhausted. You reach your limit. You have limits. But the modern woman is trying to say that we don't have limits. And we simply cannot accept that. We see through the bullshit. We give you the opportunity that you beg for and cry for. Once you have it, you blow it. So that is why we tend to not favor giving females positions that are important like that demand a lot physically and mentally, because we tend to break, because our limits, our tolerance is much lower. It's just the law of nature. But there are some people out there who are super females. Someone out there can strive, but I cannot see it as a major problem in the grand scheme of things if there is a higher percentage of, say, men in certain positions over women. I don't think that secretly there's an agenda to keep women out of power. It's just that we don't tend to impress those who are responsible of putting us in those positions, but now we are trying to pressure them into favoring us just because of our physical makeup. No. No. So, but anyway, hopefully everything that I'm saying makes sense. Let's see. I'm just trying to breeze through this because I don't want to read the whole article. It's in the description if you wonder where I'm getting this from. Um, let's see. So here's a story about someone who was a rising star at some company, had billed more hours than any of her colleagues, all of whom were men. She had secured a $25 million contract with the Department of State, one of the firm's biggest deals. Some of the partners sang her praises. And how could they know? She had been at the firm for only 5 years, and look at what she had already done. In their joint statements, evaluators called this person an outstanding professional who had a deft touch and strong character, independence, and integrity. One major client said she was extremely competent, intelligent, and strong and forthright, very productive, energetic, and creative. Her bosses put her up for the partnership. It's worth mentioning that there were then 622 other partners at the firm, and only 7 of whom were women. Other partners were less impressed. Not only was she too good, she wasn't ladylike. One man called her macho. Another one remarked that she overcompensated for being a woman. And a third quipped that she needed a course at charm school. She was denied the partnership twice, so she sued and won and went to work as a partner at the firm for 2 decades. So, as you can see, male traits tend to put you at an advantage. Male traits tend to put you in a better position. Like the guy who was describing her as macho or needing a course at charm school, again, these men know what the woman usually is supposed to represent, the values, the image that women's role in society tends to be. Isn't it amazing that you need to take traits from the other sex to be able to achieve the impressive record that you had? It's not very ladylike to go an entire year, for example, not calling out. I tend to have my years like that. I could go 3 years without calling out, and until recently, when I got the flu, I was knocked out, I had to call out. But guess what? I have to work the absolute shit out of my body to be in shape, to be strong enough to not need to recur to so much help. Because I try to think to when I started working versus how I am now. I would have been so broken. I would probably be dead by now or just disabled in some way from injury because I was a weak ass girl. And then I said, I'm given an opportunity to improve that and I will embrace it. So I make sure that I work out every single day and I make sure that I do so safely and also keep my nutrition in check. And even then, I still mess some stuff up. But I was definitely exposing myself to hardships that I, on average, would not have done. I needed to have an example, a male example, to know just how much I could actually push myself. I don't know about you, but if I remember right, when it comes to sports, like fighting sports, most, if not all, of the coaches of these women are actually men. What does that tell you? I cannot be mad at that. I would want to have a male coach to teach me how to beat someone up because men are primarily the fighters. Are you going to start telling me we need to have more female coaches in deadly sports? Sports that teach me how to beat up somebody. Who's better than a girl to teach me about how to be a girl? You know, no. I would trust more a man being the source of my coaching for obvious reasons. I really hope that nobody is angry over that, but most of the examples that I can think of, they have had male trainers. And it makes sense. It's just a trait that is associated with men. So then this lady who was securing her position in this board, this firm, whatever, she was described as masculine. Because, yeah, men tend to be the ones who go the extra mile. Women don't usually do that. I bet you that this lady needed to definitely sacrifice a lot of things to be able to achieve that position. She probably had to sacrifice her personal life. She had to really stay in shape, take care of herself and everything. And she was successful. She had to be declined because she was not the ideal image, I guess, that these people were looking for. But in the end, she sued. She got favored in the court and she won. I guess that was discriminatory. So we have laws in place that actually think about you and try to take care of you. So what are you fighting? That is my question. When we talk about we need more equality, we need more representation, we need more protection, we need more help, this and that. It's there. You just don't know how to look for it sometimes. But anyway, that's just another point. But just so you get an idea of what's discussed here. Let's see. There was another example about someone in Yahoo. The CEO of Yahoo back in 2008, I guess. Is this it? Yeah, Yahoo's CEO, one of the few executive women who have spoken openly about their firings. She was hired in 2009 to help the ailing company right itself amongst the onslaught of Google as well as the lingering tidal waves of the 2008 recession. The exact combination of seasoned technology executive and savvy leader that the board was looking for were some of her traits. This dude who was in charge was thrilled to have attracted such a world-class talent to Yahoo. 2 years later, this lady got fired on her cell phone the day before she was set to appear at a huge conference in NYC. He was only blocks away, but did not give her the courtesy of a face-to-face chat. Speaking to reporters the next day, she put it bluntly, these people fuck me over. These people at Sims are always fucking someone over. Consider also that the first high-profile person that company blamed for the financial crisis of 2008 was a woman. Or that in the wake of JP Morgan Chase and Company's 2013 London whale trading scandal, which cost the company at least $6 billion and launched a U.S. Senate investigation, it was not the company CEO, a man, who stepped down, but its chief investment officer, a woman. She was replaced by two men, or maybe considered a December 2018 headline of an Inc. magazine column. Looking at the latest scandal for Tesla's CEO, if Elon Musk were a woman, he would have been fired already. Well, if you're the, what is it, chief investment officer, and there are some losses, why would the CEO need to be fired if the CEO is not in charge of the finances, is not in charge of the investments? I'm a complete dummy when it comes to running a company at an executive level, so please do not take this like it's the word of God. But why, again, why would you need to fire the CEO if it's the financial aspect of the company that was suffering? So if the woman who was the chief investment officer, to me, investment has to do with finances, I think rightfully so, this is the person who needs to be fired because you're in charge of the money aspect of it. And then if she was replaced by two men, maybe we needed to have two men in that position to make up for all of the damage that took place during this person's leadership. Who cares if it's two men, or if it's a man and a woman, or if it's two women? Would the outcome have been that different? So I think that in that, you're just trying to bring that up just for the sake of bringing that up. And if Elon Musk were a woman, he would have been fired already. Well, Elon Musk, is he the one who actually contributes the ideas to make the Tesla stuff happen? Why hasn't a woman come out with her own version of Tesla? Like, where are the women coming up with these cars from scratch, and promoting it? I don't know Elon's personal history. Like, I don't know if he started up this business on his own and he has actual knowledge of how to build this car or these cars and whatnot, or if he's just the one who's like, hey, I have this idea, let's fund it and see if it works. Oh, it works. Well, I'm executing my function right as the CEO. Clearly, I have great ideas. I am deserving of this position. I know how to oversee everything. And he was put in this position because he went out for the position and got it. I don't know his background, but to say that you would have been fired if you were a woman, what about YouTube? YouTube has a female CEO, last time I checked. Has she been fired? I think during her leadership is when YouTube has been going through the worst bullshit ever. And most people want to quit the platform. Is it her fault? Is it the fault of other branches in YouTube, like the financial officer of YouTube? If YouTube is losing money or whatever it is because they're getting sued and they have to now comply with certain rules, whose fault is that? Why hasn't she been fired? Should we fire her? So I don't know. When I read stuff like that, I just think that that's people being over dramatic to illustrate a point that they no longer know how to back up. When things go wrong and there's no woman to blame, sometimes men will even invent one or several, as happened with a particularly sticky rumor that circulated online after a pedestrian bridge collapsed at Florida International University in 2018, killing 6 people. I remember that. A murky corner of the internet published a so-called article claiming an all-women engineering team built the bridge, and cribbling photos from the company's International Women's Day post on social media. That's all it took. I heard the rumor again, and almost a year later, when a friend met me after work one day and told me a weird story about a colleague, one who had totally bought it. Maybe that wasn't so surprising. We're primed to believe stories that scapegoat women. Well, in a situation like that, maybe if we didn't have such a reputation that when we have all female-led things, stuff fails, then why is this zooming by itself? Then maybe that wouldn't be a problem, So I don't know why, but my phone is doing that thing where it's touching stuff by itself. And it's deleting comments that it shouldn't be deleting, so I apologize about that. So let me try something. Let me see. Okay, it seems to have worked. But yeah, I deleted a comment by accident, but fortunately I had read it already. But yeah, my screen is being stupid now. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, damn it. Yeah, my phone is being really stupid. Anyway, so maybe if women had a better reputation of when you are a team, stuff doesn't go wrong, maybe we would go on to lead better lives and have more support. But do you guys remember that one movie when like it was an all female cast movie and nobody liked it and it was going wrong? I'm like, well, maybe because you took a movie that already existed and as opposed to coming out with your new thing, damn it, phone. Sorry, my phone is being really stupid. As opposed to coming up with your own movie, you decided to take something that already existed and was successful at its time and attempt to become rich off that. Yeah, it is Ghostbusters that I'm talking about. Like, that is painfully unimaginative. So maybe people would be more inclined to support us if we came out with our own stuff that is actually successful. But in order for us to succeed a little bit, or maybe disenfranchise ourselves, we have to take the stuff that had a man's image and try to make it female, and then it fails because rightfully so, it doesn't fulfill the standard, and then we get mad over that. Why? That's why we don't put women in positions of power, because we tend to not be in charge. We tend to just borrow from other people's pre-established things, and that's not as impressive. And I just do not know what to do with this phone at this point. Will it let me know? Let's see. Nah, it's making it worse. But yeah, imagine an all-female engineering team. That would be rough. Ugh. Oh! Zoomed up me. It's terrible. Okay. Okay, there I am. So I'm going to try to breeze through this before my phone glitches again, and hopefully life will get better from here. Or not. I sense that might happen because my phone has been stupid, which is weird. Like, how does it zoom in if I'm not touching it? But yeah, the touchscreen is doing that thing where it just acts on its own. But yeah, women are not known for being carpenters, engineers, and stuff like that. And I'm not saying we don't have the capacity for it, but I don't think it's a misogynistic thing. I just think that it's an issue of women's interests being different. Another thing I saw a lot, which I've said this before, was when I was in school and I was expressing my interest of being a geologist or being into the natural sciences, everyone was pushing me simply because, oh my god, we need more girls in science, girls this, girls that, yeah, more females in science. And I'm like, why do we need more females in science? Is it because we need the representation, or is it because women actually have great things to contribute but we're not being given the chance? You know, like, what is the deal? So man, fuck this. But yeah, I don't think that you should just put someone in a position simply because of who or what they are. I think if you have great ideas, you will be considered. You will be put there. But anyways, well guys, I guess it would be nice if I just quit right now. I think I have made most of my points. And no, don't report this person. No. Okay. Yeah, my phone is trying to report people's comments when there's no reason to report them, so I'm sorry about that. But yeah, I think I've said everything I needed to say, and I might just leave here before I do something stupid. Well guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and I might come back later if the phone allows it. I just hate that it's being so stupid right now. But yeah, it's just touching things without me telling it to. Yeah, it's just being stupid, so I'm gonna leave now. Alright guys, I'm sorry.